Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? Over the weekend, I started watching the first X-Men movie from 2000 with my kids. Picked at it here and there, and we finished it last night. I can't remember the last time I watched that one, but it really took me back. Year 2000. Um, Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man movie in '02, gets a lot of credit for kicking off the superhero craze. This one came 2 years before it, and I think it reached a little bit narrower of an audience just because it was a little bit grittier, a little bit more serious, but it still really kicked off that whole like, wow, we can do this and there's an audience for it mindset. Um, when I watch movies like this for the umpteenth time, especially after all these years of writing, I'm paying attention a little bit more to dialogue, to the setups and payoffs, to the scripts of it and everything. And this one it's just a piece of good writing. The writers knew the characters that they were dealing with. I think Bryan Singer and who was the other guy, David Hayter, they got the story together, and then the screenplay writer is somebody else in Hollywood. But they got together like, okay, here's our characters, here's the four members of the Brotherhood of Mutants, here are the 5 or 6 X-Men that we're dealing with, and they'll be at the school, and we'll be able to throw in a couple of cameos from others. Jubilee and Shadowcat were in this one. Pyro and Iceman were in this one. I think the only actor that they kept for the next couple was Shawn Ashmore playing Iceman, but the rest of them got recast when they appeared at all. Jubilee kind of got shafted. They did eventually put Shadowcat in there. But anyway, the pacing was tight, the story was good, things just moved, and I think that movement is really indicative of good screenwriting. And they established things quickly, they got out quickly, and just kept going. The script is really Wolverine centric. I know that they start off with Magneto's prologue and the Holocaust, and then they quickly cut over to Rogue in Mississippi, and then from there it's how quickly can we meet Wolverine and show that he's missing memories and he's on the outs and he doesn't trust humans, but he also doesn't really trust mutants, and his growth is about learning to kind of humble himself a little bit and need the X-Men and help them out and go save Rogue and all of that. There were some key differences between the comics. My favorite X-Men has always been Gambit, and so the fact that he wasn't in this one and that he was barely in any of the other ones always kind of stuck in my craw. And as much as Teenage Graham had capital T, the capital H hots for Anna Paquin, it felt like she wasn't the right fit for Rogue, but she did great in this particular interpretation of it. Kind of like Halle Berry playing Storm, Anna Paquin had this very light accent that would come and go for a character that was supposed to really lean into it. I just read that Rogue in the Savage Land comic earlier this year, and her accent is written very thick. And so I figured, well, maybe it should come out a little bit thicker, but maybe it was just hard to find the right actress with that natural accent or the ability to perform it. Anyway, I'm getting out into the weeds. Halle Berry had this subtle off-brand proto-Wakandan accent here and there in this one, and then it kind of disappeared in the sequels. I think she got just a little bit more comfortable playing herself in the role. She got an Oscar sometime around this time, and so her clout got a little bit bigger. But it was just cool to see these actors earlier on. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen were inspired casting for their roles for playing Professor X and Magneto. And it's cool that they've gone on to do that over and over for the next several decades. This is just a well-loved movie, and it's aged well. There were not a whole lot of things that I had to explain to my kids. Yeah, we've touched on World War II and the Holocaust before in homeschool, but I think that this is the first time we've watched a movie that had anything of the Holocaust in it. And so I had to pause that prologue and explain to him, I was like, right, here's where the tattoos on the arms are, here's Poland, here's concentration camps, here's what all of this means so that you can understand this particular scene. And then I talked about the Senator Kelly character. I swear, I remember. So I grew up in Nevada, and I always thought that dude looked like Harry Reid, our senator from Nevada, and he was like, okay, it's cool that it's fitting that he's a bastard because despite the fact that he kept getting reelected, like everybody hated Harry Reid, but he was washed up with the unions, and so they kept sending their boys to reelect him. And it didn't help that the Nevada GOP, like, every time it was time for Harry Reid to get reelected, some newspaper would put out a poll like, oh, see how unpopular this guy is? Any Republican could beat him. And the GOP was like, oh, bet. They'd find the biggest moron they could to run against him. Oh my gosh. I still remember Sharon Angle in 2010. She had a talent for saying some really awesome things when there was a microphone around. Just wow, lady. But I digress. It was kind of sad how strong of a start X-Men had between this one in 2000 and X2 in 2003. And Bryan Singer, who directed them, and I'm not going to get into the weeds about anything that happened kind of off camera with Hollywood. He's had allegations and cases and whatnot. That's a whole separate story. He handled these ones well, and kind of like Halle Berry and Anna Paquin and Hugh Jackman and all that, like, his star began to rise, and he got opportunities to do other projects that he wanted to tackle. In 2004, I think he shot the pilot for House and produced that one all the way through, and then he got the chance to do Superman, and he did the Superman Returns movie. And so he left X-Men when everybody was really on the edge of their seat for the third movie, and Brett Ratner got it, and he did X-Men The Last Stand, and he just made it kind of on par with a made-for-TV movie. It's one of those movies that you watch it, and you're like, this isn't bad, but it's not worthy of what came before it. It's just, like, the heart and the thoughtfulness behind it isn't there. It's just stuff happening and people occasionally having bursts of emotion over it. And we'll throw in some memes, and we'll have the Juggernaut say, I'm the Juggernaut, bleep. And that's that. I was just talking about this on Zach's video last week. People were comparing the first weekend box office of the new Superman movie with the first weekend box office of Man of Steel in 2013. So, it's important to remember that in 2011, when X-Men First Class came out from Matthew Vaughn, Brett Ratner, who directed Last Stand in 2006, he was crashing out on Twitter about it, saying that his movie in 2006 was better and the box office was higher, and Matthew Vaughn's box office was lower, and he cast January Jones to play Emma Frost, and she's a bad actress, and blah, blah, blah. Like, he had a meltdown that weekend because people were saying better things about X-Men First Class than they were about X-Men The Last Stand. And so, it's important to remember that there were two movies prior to Last Stand that were excellent, and Brett Ratner came in standing on their shoulders, and he absolutely crashed people's enthusiasm for X-Men by making a movie that was just not good and not a worthy follow-up to those two. So there was that one in 2006, and then there was the Wolverine Origins movie in 2009, which it kind of had the same tenor. You watch it, and in pieces, it's fine. It doesn't come together the way that those first X-Men movies did, the first two. And so now the franchise had a bad taste in people's mouth, and they were effectively rebooting it 2 years later. Different director, different cast, different setting, all of that. And so you had to get that audience back, and they were a little bit wary after having been bit the last two times. But all Brett Ratner wanted to look at was the box office. The second arc with the James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender characters started out the same way. The first movie was really good. The second movie had a lot going for it, also had a couple of flaws. the third one, Apocalypse, it was like The Last Stand. Like, it was just kind of there, and people could enjoy pieces of it, but it doesn't come together. And I didn't watch Dark Phoenix. Trailers never did it for me. I never heard anything good from anybody who did see it. Fox tried the Phoenix cycle twice and missed twice, which is really too bad. But sounds like with Deadpool and Wolverine, they got some of their mojo back, and with Disney buying Fox and doing the whole like, okay, we're gonna snip all these multiverse branches and correct the timeline and blah, like, sounds like they're trying to right the ship. I don't know. Generally, I continue to be out on Marvel movies after Endgame. I'll catch one here or there if it looks good. Still want to see Thunderbolts. I'm glad I didn't see Brave New World in the theater. It wasn't worth it. After watching it on Plus with my son, like, it was fine. But the last 25 years of superhero movies, and especially the last 25 years of Marvel movies, they all started not with Spider-Man in 2002, but with X-Men in 2000. And it's cool to see that 25 years later, this movie is still held up. You know, even the effects have still held up. But the writing, the characters, the acting, all of that have been just great. So if you haven't watched X-Men 2000 in a while, go check it out. Drive safe. See you out there.